Pit stops in Formula 1, the intense handful of seconds that can decide track position and a race's results in almost the blink of an eye. Fresh rubber means more pace on track by perhaps a few tenths of a second each lap, but a whole second can be gained or lost depending on how fast an F1 pit crew can change tyres and make vital adjustments to the car in the pit lane. An F1 pit crew consists of around 18 people. Everyone in the team has an important duty and each one has to be executed in sync and as fast as possible for a successful pit stop. These range from balancing the car, making wing adjustments, to changing the actual tyres themselves. Here in this GPFans Special, we take a look at each role that a pit crew member has in order to complete those lightning fast stops. And even quicker than a Red Bull tyre change is the time it takes to click the link down below to subscribe to GPFans for all of our specials, news from Formula 1, and stay with us for the whole of the 2022 season and beyond. Before we get into jobs though, let's quickly have a look at the changes that have come into Formula 1 regarding pit stops. F1 teams have now turned pit stops into a true art. Until recently, we even regularly saw tyre changes of under 2 seconds. This is now a thing of the past. The FIA feared that ever faster pit stops would increase the risk of tyres coming loose. In a packed pit lane, a runaway Formula 1 tyre is kind of the last thing that anybody wants to see. The motorsport body has therefore decided during the 2021 season that every mechanic with a wheel gun must first hit a special button mounted on the wheel gun once changing the wheel. When all 4 tyres have been checked, the mechanic will hit the button and only then can the car leave. There must be at least 2 tenths of a second between the moment that the tyre is put on and the mechanic pressing the button. According to the FIA, this is the time it takes for a human reaction time. This means that the stops do take a little bit longer, but safety, of course, is always paramount, particularly in a crowded area like a pit lane. So let's have a look at the pit crew roles. The engineer with the front jack is the first person to act. As soon as the car stops at the indicated spot, they immediately slide the jack under the nose of the car so that the car is lifted into the air, and the front tyres can therefore be changed. As soon as the car has been lifted up, he steps to the side, the jack man. When the new rubber has been fitted, all he has to do is pull out the jack and the driver can immediately continue on his way. Formula 1 teams, of course, don't use your average jack from the local hardware store. These devices cost around about $250,000 a piece. And of course, there's always 2 or 3 spares lying around the garage just in case. This also applies actually to the engineer who's holding the front jack itself. It sometimes happens that a driver perhaps brakes too late or goes too fast in the pit lane, causing this person to be knocked over. That's why there's always a second engineer with a front jack ready, just in case there are any problems with the first front jack man. Then, of course, there is also someone who operates at the rear of the car with the rear jack. They're obviously responsible for lifting the rear of the car so that the rear tyres can be changed. The jack here is slid under the rear of the car. As with the front jackman, there is always a backup in case of an emergency. Once the car is jacked up, it's now time for the 4 tyre gunners to go to work. The engineers who are ready with the wheel gun at all 4 wheels. It's an important task because they have to loosen the wheel nut for each tyre so that a new tyre can be fitted, after which they retighten the wheel nut of the new tyre. When a car enters the pit lane, you often see them moving along with the wheel gun, so that they can work immediately as soon as the car comes to a stop. Some of these wheel guns even have laser targeters on them. A tyre gunner can earn around about $5,000 per racing weekend. In terms of annual salary then, on top of that, your base salary as well, a tyre gunner could be making around about $300,000 a season. The tyre carriers consist of 8 people in total. The first 4 remove the used tyre as soon as they are unscrewed. The other 4 then put the new ones back on as soon as possible. The 18-inch tyres have the weight of around about a hefty bowling ball, so it's a fairly difficult job to say the least. The car is balanced during the tyre changes by 2 people holding the cockpit. In this way, the rest of the pit crew can do their job without any bobbling or moving of the car to interfere. If a driver has to have his front wing replaced during a pit stop, these 2 men also get a bit of an extra task. Logically, the car can't be lifted from the front, so in this situation, the 2 side jack men will have to lift the car so that the front tyres can be changed and of course the wing replaced as well. There are two more people responsible for making any aerodynamic adjustments to the front wing. This can be for several reasons. For example, on dry weather tyres, you need completely different settings to those of the intermediates. But if you also want to save fuel, or if the tyre wear is a little bit too much, you can go a long way with a differently adjusted front wing. There is a screw at both ends of the front wing. By turning this, the so-called flaps of the front wing can be adjusted differently. This is done by the means of the so-called clicks. One click, as it were, is a tap up or a tap down. Now, there is a danger in this. For example, if both sides of the front wing are adjusted differently, or if there are too many or too few clicks up or down, the driver will have to deal with quite a bit of over or understeer for the rest of the race. The pit stop controller, the man who used to stand with that sign in the shape of a lollipop in his hand, receives all the signal checks whether it is safe to leave the pits and then releases the car. Previously, this was done by turning a board over on the end of the lollipop, but now a light jumps from red to green. Modern technology, eh? This is a sign that the driver can now leave the pit lane. Finally, there is always somebody on hand with a fire extinguisher ready, just in case, well, the car goes up in flames. This position only became official in 1994 after an incident with Jos Verstappen, Max Verstappen's father, during the German Grand Prix. One of the crew members disconnected the fuel hose a little too early, causing Verstappen Sr.'s car to become covered in fuel and then briefly disappear in a blaze of fire. Now, fortunately, everybody got away unscathed, but it was a stark reminder of the dangers that can come with fuel changes in the pit lane, hence why they don't have them anymore. Now, it is not the case that you can apply for a job as a fire extinguisher or chief front jackman in pit crews. The pit crew consists of engineers who all have other different roles within the team, and then of course they help out in the pit stop as well. A driver's duties during a pit stop may seem simple, but they're fairly complex. He has to make sure he turns from the pit lane, of course, into the correct pit box and stop at exactly the indicated spot. Now, the pit crew is ready and waiting on their marks and don't want to have to deviate or shuffle over, so a half-meter distance means that everybody has to take a new position. This, of course, takes time, but can also cause, for example, the front jackman to potentially be knocked over. As soon as the car is stationary, the driver puts the vehicle into neutral. He keeps his foot on the brake to ensure that the tyres don't spin and holds the wheel tight so that the front wheels don't move at all. At the same time, the driver is once again focusing on the departure procedure. He starts to ramp up the revs of the engine to the desired level, and as soon as that light turns green, he puts his car back in gear and hits the gas. In doing so, however, he must take into account the maximum speed of the pit lane and ensure that he stays within the indicated lines. All of this is done in just a second or two. It only takes a few seconds, but the work of a pit crew is very impressive indeed. That is why DHL created the DHL Fastest Pit Stop Award in 2015, a championship where you can earn points by delivering the fastest tyre change. Now, Red Bull Racing dominated here for a long time. In 2019, they even clocked a world record by replacing Max Verstappen's tyres in Brazil in 1.83 seconds. However, since the changes to the regulations, with the tap of the button on the wheel gun, the team from Milton Keynes is just that little bit less dominant. Mercedes has a rather less than impressive record for the slowest pit stop ever. Valtteri Bottas' stop during the Monaco Grand Prix in 2021 lasted no less than 3 days. Yep, 3 days to make a pit stop. The Finn came in from second to change tyres, but the lug nut on the right front tyre tightened itself. The band was never able to be removed in Monaco. Mercedes had to send the car back to the factory, where they finally managed to get the tyre off on the Tuesday after the race. So that is our F1 pit stop special. You know all the duties, you know how much a couple of them pay, and you know how intense an F1 pit stop can be. Now all you need to do is follow the channel here at GPFans to stay up to date with all the latest and breaking news in the world of Formula 1 by clicking the link down below.